This week on Motorhead Garage, we're sealing the deal with a new line of steel rubber products. Later on, Brian and John get ready for some off-roading by installing a powerful new rear axle. Next on Motorhead Garage, presented by Dustless Blasting.
Welcome to Motorhead Garage, presented by Dustless Blasting. Now, our 68 Impala runs really good, but it also looks good, and it has to be sealed up from the weather and elements. And we have with us Matt, the president of Steel Rubber. You guys do just that. What products do you have to do that?
John, on this particular car, it's very fortunate. We have every piece of rubber that's essential from the tail right to the front of this car. Trunk rubber. This one has pretty good trunk rubber, but I noticed it could use a little body work. If they do body work, they have to rip out that rubber and have to replace it.
Right.
The most important part is sealing that whole cabin to protect your interior. You spend a lot of money in the interior. So you've got your roof rail rubber that we have here, quarter window, and that just slides into a channel. Your filler that fits underneath that. And of course, your door rubber to go around the perimeter of the door. We also have the vent window seals and the vision posts. And then the parts that go inside the door too.
Right.
Between the run channel and of course, you gotta have the belt line channels inside.
The old fuzzy, we used to call them.
Old fuzzies,
Yep.
Tons of different names for it. But all that's essential to sealing this car up, to protecting everything that's inside.
Now, Matt, Steel Rubber has a lot of vehicles covered.
We do. I brought it in a sample of the Seal It kit for this particular car. Plus, we have a lot of other parts that aren't even shown there. But one of the things we started doing a couple years ago is we started making a custom catalog for our customers. We used to have a 600-page catalog, but the customers only needed just a few pages, so it was they had a hard time finding the parts.
Right.
So now we've built a database, so we can do a catalog just for the car that you have, right down to your make, model, and style, and print it out within 5 minutes and have it shipped out to you.
Right.
Now, the guys that have an obscure car or they have a street rod, we also have a universal catalog, and that's got hundreds and hundreds of profiles, both dense, sponge, bumpers.
Everything you could use.
Everything you can
Absolutely.
think of is in that catalog. And within this last year, we also came out with a catalog for RVs. A lot of us car guys got trailers. We haul our stuff around, or we have our little toy haulers or motor homes. We do make parts for the RVs too. So. Well,
Matt, it sounds like you got them all covered, and Steel Rubber has it down to an art form. Speaking of art form, let's check out Brian, who's given us some install tips.
Well, thanks, John. Yeah, I'm here with Danny from Steel Rubber Products, and what we've done is we've already taken out that upper window seal, and we're taking a look at it. Now, the crazy thing is this has actually been replaced sometime after this car was new, and this rubber is already starting to degrade. One of the important things about Steel Rubber Products is that their compounds are guaranteed for the life of your vehicle. All rubber is certainly not created equal. Now, Danny, you're getting going on this quarter window seal back here, and I think what's important is we love the sound of that blower winding up under the hood, but we hate the sound of the wind noise here, so what's happening?
Yeah, the two seals we're going to replace here are the U-jam seal that I've already undone. Kind of seals up where the door locks into the quarter window, where the quarter window comes through the fender panel. Just a couple of screws. All these tools, or all these parts, can be replaced with just a screwdriver. And this one has a small screw down here that we've already taken out, and this piece just slides right down the track like that. Now we're going to replace both of these, and we're going to replace the quarter window leading edge first. And this one goes on a little bit easier with just a little bit of Dawn soap on it.
Just kind of use that, a little bit of a lubricant there to get that up on your channel.
Help it slide, and it evaporates, doesn't hurt your metal at all. And then it just goes right up that channel.
Danny, as you keep sliding this thing up on the channel, the one thing I think about is, this is a great job for anybody at home who's got a hot rod or who's got their classic car to really upgrade the kind of living conditions inside it, right? It makes it much more pleasurable to drive when this thing's all sealed up.
Yeah, you get the wind noise out of there, and it really goes a long way for the looks of the car too, and it's a real simple piece to replace.
So you got your quarter window seal here, now you're gonna pop that guy in the bottom?
Yep, and this leading edge just sits right down underneath here and just goes right underneath the belt line and just sits right there.
Perfect. Then we're going to move to our upper seal, get that finished up, and then when we come back from break, we're going to have a more challenging install to do for you and to give you some tips on how to get your door sealed up. A little bit more involved than doing these window seals.
This edition of Motorhead Garage, presented by Dustless Blasting, is being brought to you by Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radio since 1977. Brothers Truck Parts, your #1 source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GMC truck restoration. Stage 8, the world's best locking fastener. And by Dustless Blasting, it's the future of surface preparation.
Man, this came out nice, just finishing up this last spot right here. Hey, welcome back to Motorhead Garage, presented by Dustless Blasting. You know, we've got our upper window seal finished. I'm here with Danny from Steel Rubber Products. Danny, we're going to move on to the door, and the door is a little bit more involved than what we've done so far, right?
Yeah, the door, you don't need any special tools. We do have a clip remover tool that is easy, but basically all the door weather stripping is pins, and they're placed just for this car, so.
Yeah, so it's obviously it's application specific. You're not having to cut or trim stuff. This is designed to fit your particular application.
That's right, and they just pop right in. Sometimes they can be a little bit tough, so you want to get something like maybe like a wood block.
Little wedge maybe?
Like we have here.
Nice.
But a screwdriver you don't want to use, it might just go straight through the rubber.
You can tell, I mean, our previous door seal was in horrible shape. It had completely degraded, and actually just half of it was actually missing, especially up by the top of the door. You know, one of the cool things you guys are doing now is the application-specific catalog. So you don't have to go paging through a 600-700 page catalog. You call Steel Rubber, you're going to get the information you need for your particular car.
That's right. You get the catalog for your car. It'll show you the right parts, so you don't have to go through a bunch and decide which one you need. You know that this one's just for the 68 Impala hardtop.
Pretty cool. And the fact that the rubber compounds that Steel is using are guaranteed for the life of your vehicle, so you're not going to have to do this job more than once.
That's right.
You know, the door seal is very important for a multitude of reasons, but obviously, you know, you want to keep the car sealed up for moisture purposes, but also you don't want to keep any, obviously, rainwater drips. You see a lot of cars where the floor pans rust out in the front because of the faulty seals. You get the water puddling in there. Next thing you know, you're having to replace the floor.
Yeah, the door seal is also one of those parts. This one in particular, like I said, is real easy to replace, goes a long way for the looks of the car, and helps protect the investment that you've put on the interior.
Yeah, and this thing's practically installing itself. I mean, you're halfway through this thing, and we've been docking for about 30 seconds. It is important to note that the clips are included. Now, this particular seal has the clips embedded into it, and you had a couple that you added that were included with the piece up on the top to get that top piece set up. But, man, you're making good progress down there.
Yeah, this one, you know, we place these pins by hand. We have all the measurements. You can see how most of them are just the same space all the way through, but right around the top, we know exactly where those pins are going to be. They'll fit perfectly. This one actually has a little bit of metal inside of here for the extra strength and durability, and it's just real easy to do, and it's really nice to put on your car.
Absolutely. And Steel Rubber prides themselves in the fact that you have a very extensive product lineup. We've talked about it, but you know, anything from the 1930s when rubber first started showing up in cars all the way up until really some pretty close to late model stuff, right?
Yeah, we have some parts that are even in the 2000s for trucks and things like that.
Well, if I want to find Steel Rubber on the internet, where am I going to find you guys?
Our website is www.steelrubber.com, and on our website you can search by year, make, model, and even the body style, and all the parts that we offer for that car will show up right there.
Okay. Well, Danny, made short work of that job. You know, one of the things I noticed was that you took real care to make sure your pins were centered over the hole before you tried to push them through.
Yeah, the pins are plastic, but having them nice and square before you press them in will make sure everything's going in all the way, and you keep it from bending and just getting messed up when you're trying to do it.
You know, we got the door apart. If someone's going to do this job at home, what other tips would you give them? You know, if you're going this far, what else should you do?
While you've got the door panel off, there's a lot of things that you have access to. This is when you want to replace your belt line. You're going to have to remove the door panel for that. And the run channel on the back of your vent window. Your actual vent window seal and division post. You're going to have to take that whole vent window assembly out, and this is the time to do that. Basically, once you've taken the door panel off, you want to do everything that you can while you're in there so you don't have to go in and do the job twice.
Well, Danny, you're going to finish up doing our door seal here in the 68 Impala, and John Gardner is going to tell you about something pretty cool.
Time now to connect with Garage Social. Meet Nicholas Jordan and the M3 Canyon Carver.
My name is Nicholas Jordan and I'm a car enthusiast. I've been in the car scene for about 22 years. When I was a kid, I remember going with my dad in his Austin Healey. The feeling of just driving the car and feeling the way it moves on the road, going through the curves. Felt like a roller coaster that just didn't end and you didn't have to wait in line for it. From there, it was every 2 years with a new car, new adventures, and new stories. Today is my story, and this is about a 2016 BMW M3. This car has an inline six with a twin-turbo engine and a dual-clutch transmission. The M3 is legendary. Doesn't matter what year, what series, as long as it's an M3. So this car has a 1-inch drop that I did to the car 3 days after taking delivery. Have adjustability for the throttle control, suspension, and the steering input, along with a transmission input, which changes the car from a daily commuter to a race-bred track machine for corner carving. For more information, you can find me on garagesocial.com.
Now, Nicholas is a car enthusiast, just like so many others on garagesocial.com. Now, Mariana, Nicholas has got one bad BMW. Tell us a little bit about Nicholas.
Nicholas lives in California and he loves to drive through the highways and the scenic views. He's part of 15 different car groups and he's been involved in cars for over 20 years.
Wow, I love when he says, I could take it through like a roller coaster ride all through those streets and I don't even have to buy a ticket.
Yes, for him, every drive is a new adventure.
Now, Nicholas lowered his BMW 1 inch 3 days after delivery. If you want to show off your car like Nicholas, just go on to garagesocial.com and log in.
Motorhead Garage, presented by Dustless Blasting, coming to you from Borla Commerce Park.
Boy, the bottom of this thing sure has seen some stuff. Welcome back to Motorhead Garage, presented by Dustless Blasting. As you can see, the owner of this JK Jeep is a real hardcore off-roader. 37-inch tires, big coilover shocks. But unfortunately, he's stuck with this Dana 44 factory axle, and he's taken it as far as you can go. It's got 513 gears, big cast cover on the back of the differential, a big truss on top. But the reality is he still has some concerns on the trail. Most of the internals in this thing, like the axles, are still stock. We have a bomb-proof option to get a whole bunch more strength and reliability under the back of this Jeep, and John's going to tell you a whole bunch about it.
I'm here with Chase from East Coast Gear Supply. Now, Chase, you guys build battle-ready axles, and this is the proof right here. Tell us a little bit about your company.
We're a gear and axle supplier and manufacturer. So we sell parts online at eastcoastgearsupply.com. We have a service facility in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then we manufacture new bolt-in axle assemblies, mostly for the off-road market and the off-highway market.
And Chase, this is one of them, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to tell this is a beefy Dana 60. Tell us a little bit about this axle.
So it's a JK axle. It's completely bolt-in. It's a 35 spline Dana 60, which has a 9.75 ring and pinion. It is ABS compatible, so it's going to work with all your factory electronics. This particular axle takes the factory disc brake package, so you save some money by reusing your brakes, and it's ready to bolt in and ready to hit the trail as soon as you are.
Yeah, and we'll get this thing in, but the real beauty's inside the components. That's what makes the difference, and they're right over here on the table. I mean, look at these axles. I could see the difference alone. Tell me about these two.
This is a stock Dana 44 30 spline shaft. It has a 1.31 OD, and then this would be one of our shafts that's going to be in this Dana 60. It's 35 spline, 1.5 OD. Wow. So difference in strength, just in size, is 40%. We also use a 4340 chromoly versus the factory is going to use a 1039, 1040, 1050 alloy. Big strength differences in the materials. So this 30 spline shaft will break at anywhere between 4,000 and 5,000 pounds. This will break at 12,000 to 13,000 pounds.
That's 3 times the strength.
Yeah.
Ring and pinions too. You can see the big difference between yours and a factory.
Right. Pinion size, larger teeth. Ring gear size, much bigger ring. Bigger teeth, more contact, less deflection, much more strength.
Yeah, important when you're setting these up. Now, most impressively to me was these two. What do we got going on between these two?
That's the cross section of the tubes. This is our tube. It's 3.5-inch OD with a 7/16 wall. This is factory JK tube, 3 1/8 quarter wall.
You think about what's going on inside of there?
Absolutely.
Even if I don't know, I choose this one. I mean, that's huge difference. Got some carriers. I mean, factory versus your air locker. What's going on here?
Factory E-locker. Flick the switch, it locks in, both tires are going to spin at the same time.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Air locker, flick the switch, air pressure locks it in, both tires spin at the same time. The difference is that air, you can submit a lot more force into the differential to keep it locked in, where this is using a magnet and small pins. So a lot of failure rates with this when you start going to big tires and certainly more horsepower.
Absolutely. You're dealing with magnetism, metal, not a good idea. How about your bearings?
All right, these are the pinion bearings. Dana 60 on the bottom, Dana 44 on the top. Obviously, large size difference. This 60 bearing is going to have a lot bigger load capacity.
Yeah, and people don't realize, I mean, that's supporting the whole thing, axles and everything. That's huge. What about the other set?
This is the carrier bearings. Dana 60 on the bottom, Dana 44 on the top. Again, a bigger bearing, less deflection.
You could feel that. Chase, I know it's a lot of people just slam these differentials together. That's not a good idea. It takes a lot of skill to put a differential in. I mean, we're talking preload, tooth pinion contact, gear patch. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. Why don't you tell me a little bit what you guys do to make these things so right?
Absolutely. It's almost an art form. So you have to have the pinion depth correctly. That's where the pinion is going to ride in the ring gear. The round surfaces on the gears are actually meshing, that's where you get gear mesh from, together. So you want the nice smooth surfaces rotating across each other, and that's why pinion depth is so critical.
Absolutely. You guys do a good job. And speaking of skilled technicians, I'm glad you're here. We also have Brian over at the Jeep. We're going to take this Dana 60 and install it right after the break.
This edition of Motorhead Garage, presented by Dustless Blasting, is being brought to you by Machinist Mate, dedicated to bringing new revolutionary cleaning products to the market. Canback is back. Stage 8, the world's best locking fastener. And by Dustless Blasting, it's the future of surface preparation.
Well, welcome back to Motorhead Garage, presented by Dustless Blasting. You know, you can see we got the Jeep up on the lift. We've actually taken that old Dana 44 out of the Jeep, and we've begun to swing the big Dana 60 up under it. Now you can see that I've made a personnel upgrade here because I got Chase from East Coast Gear Supply helping me. Gardner is once again run from any prospect of physical labor in the shop. And we used the PB blaster to bust all the old bolts loose to get the 44 out. Now we're working on the 60, and it's not complicated work, but it is kind of challenging.
Yeah, it's definitely hard work to do a 4-link axle swap, and we're even working on a lift. With this suspension system that's been out in the elements for a few years, everything was seized, so we had to fight it.
Yeah, this is definitely a Jeep that's seen its fair share of off-road combat, if you will. So the blaster worked to get everything loose, and this thing's working pretty good now. The great thing about the construction of this axle is it's designed to pick up all the factory points. So if you want to get on the jack real quick, I would like to slide this shock into position so we can get the shock connected on this side.
Tell me when.
Keep coming to me. Keep coming. All right, I am through with that. Talk to me a little bit about when you guys build these things. You know, I'm looking at the bracketry on the old Dana 44, and it might as well have been a cardboard compared to this, man. This is heavy-duty stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we go to a 1/4-inch bracket most of the time. It keeps it from bending. If you see the old axle that came out of this, all the control arms were folded a bit, which is kind of what made us struggle. We had to get the links lined back up to where they should be.
We talked about the tube, and you know, one of the things people saw in that 44 was that big kind of brace we had across the top of it. With the thickness of your new tubes, there is no need for that anymore, right?
Not really, and with that thin wall tube on the factory stuff, you have to be real careful about putting a truss on something, because as you weld it, it will pull and it'll warp that housing. So if you are going to be welding a truss onto factory housing or even any housing, make sure you weld it slow and take your time.
I think what's another cool thing, that one of these things you're looking at it but you don't really see it, is the fact that This is your own casting that we're using here in the center of this. This is not a reconditioned, something you drove out of the wrecking yard and blasted. This is all your stuff.
Absolutely. This is brand new USA made casting, covers made in the US, brackets US. Most of the ring and pinions that we use are made in the US for these particular axles. So a lot of American components on this axle and very strong. If you look here, this is our air fitting for the locker, and then here's your vent, you know, perfectly in place. We got a little cap on there so dust doesn't get in it when shipping, but just slide that on there and start hooking up the rest. We've still got a little bit more to do, obviously.
Yeah, we do. We got to obviously reconnect the drive shaft. We've got our bolts started pretty much all over this thing, but before we had it into pulley position, we waited to snug everything down. Two more things. One is you're way more than just Jeeps. This is obviously a Jeep application, but you guys cover a whole lot of different things.
Yeah, definitely. For our complete swap-in axles for the end user, a lot of that is Jeep products. However, we do some off-highway stuff. Maybe we go to the zoo and you see the trolleys, those have axles. Somebody has to build those. So we do spend some time doing OEM work as well as this. And then, of course, our sales department where you can buy auto parts, and for anything you need for a differential, we have. And we're certainly specialized to the general repair rear end and then the off-road rear end.
Cool. One of the things we're going to do after we set this thing down and get everything bolted, we're going to attach the track bar once we get it set to ride height. That's kind of typical protocol on that.
That's what, so if you see these bolt holes here, this would be for different lift heights, because this is going to set where your rear axle sits sideways. So we'll set it down, we'll grab out the tape measure, measure it, and then figure out which hole is the best hole to run.
Well, this is going in very well. It's obviously a piece that's designed to fit right, and it is going to fit right. It's going to give the owner of this Jeep way more confidence on the trail, so he doesn't smoke that little Dana 44, which, fine axle, but we're looking at the big boy right here. So, Chase, thank you very much for coming into the shop. Let's get this finished, hit the trail, and we'll be back next week with more Motorhead Garage presented by Dustless Blasting.